and welcome back again to my channel. I'm Heather Stamper and here with a book talk day. I know it's been a while. That's because I've been reading a couple of very large tomes and listening to some very long audiobooks. And so I didn't really have enough to present in April, but now that it's May and the end of May, I have a lot. So I will try and keep my reviews snappy and hopefully with as little edits as possible so that I can get this out to you by Friday. That's my goal. Yay. All right. So we got a lot of books today. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 books to review with you people today. It's been a minute. So without further ado, let's get things started. So I'm going to start my review with The Girl from Everywhere by Heidi Heilig. And for those of you following the Pop Sugar Reading Challenge, this book is written by a Pacific Islander. So the synopsis would be Nix, I love her name. I just think choice. Nix is the daughter of a sea captain, and he has magical ability to go to any place in time as long as he has a detailed map of his destination. The map he wants most is Honolulu, 1868, so he can be reunited with Nix's mother, who died shortly after she was born. Problem is, if he's successful, will Nix cease to exist? You know, the angsty teenage thing, because she's 16 years old, and I got the love interest with one of his deckhands, Kashmir, who was picked up on another map journey. And I will say he's pretty cool. You know, she couldn't do better. All right. You have like the intrigue and politics that went on in Hawaii when it was a colony, and you know, just like how downfall of the monarchy versus, you know, the colonization, and it's very interesting stuff to listen to. So I liked the book. I think it was a very intriguing concept and well thought out world building as to how and why they're able to travel by ship and basically by map. The romance aspect was a bit heavy-handed for me though, so I give this one 4 bookmarks, 4 out of 5 bookmarks. So my second read was Americanah by Chiamanda Ngozi Adichie. And for this Pop Sugar Challenge, I chose this one for my quote from a favorite author, Dave Eggers. He writes some really excellent books. He's not my all-time favorite necessarily, but he ranks pretty good. So, but this one would fall under categories of other things, POVs and such. Ifemelu and Obinze, and they're like the cute high school sweetheart set from Nigeria. You know, it's like they just kind of click naturally together. But Ifemelu is given an opportunity to study in America and loses touch with Obinze after she made some choices for survival's sake that she felt a bit ashamed of, because a person of color in Nigeria is very different from being a person of color where that color is not the norm. So there was very much a culture clash going on there. And so what would have been things that are easy, hi Gigi, what would have been easy things for her in Nigeria were extremely hard in the United States, and vice versa. So very interesting, and some very sad and painful choices were made. So, but poor heartbroken Obinze doesn't know why she stopped talking to him. And when he tries to go to the United States, well, this is post 9/11, that wasn't happening. So he goes to live as an undocumented immigrant in London so that he was hopefully going to be able to hop across to the United States that way. Didn't quite work out. There's some very interesting business going on. While being an undocumented immigrant. You felt kind of bad for the guy because, geez, you know, it's like all he wanted was to find out what happened to his girlfriend. And it's like the whole world was trying to stop him. So very, very sad. Fast forward 15 years later, and both characters return to Nigeria. Ifemelu is a successful blogger, about being an African Black in America. I don't know who she's supposed to represent here. Author, maybe. Just say. And Abinze is a successful real estate agent. Now, they both still have their problems. I mean, they're both successful in the financial sense. But Ifemelu can't seem to hold on to a relationship with anyone without sabotaging it, and which highly relatable to so many people. The head games we play with ourselves can mess with how we relate with others. And Abinze, while he's successful financially, is kind of stuck in a marriage of social conveniences. And so then that becomes the thing was like, well, now that they're back, is she going to be able to explain to him what happened? Is he going to be able to forgive her? Can they move forward? So on and so forth. I really love the psychological analysis of the two characters. It didn't get too, textbookish. It felt very real. And the ending left me satisfied with the way the characters continue to evolve after the main plot points have been checked off the list. So I really, really like this one. So I gave this one 5 bookmarks. Highest I go, 5 out of 5. Yay. The next book I read was The Happiness Project, which has an extremely long title. Here we go. Ready? The Happiness Project, or Why I Spent a Year Trying to Sing in the Morning, Clean My Closets, Fight Right, Read Aristotle, and Generally Have More Fun, by Gretchen Rubin. I chose this one because it fit the category of beginning. The title had to begin with the last letter of my previous read. Americana ended with an H. Happiness Project starts with H. There you go. This wasn't a book that I was necessarily looking for. I was looking for something that would fill that category. And none of my other books quite met that criteria. So I was just kind of fumbling around on the Indiana Library Download Center, because I live in Indiana. And I came across this one and it was available. So woot woot. So Gretchen Rubin has had a lot of different career things. She's an accomplished author. She has written a lot of lawyery texts type of things, but it's basically her 12 months of anecdotal records of her happiness project, how to become a more contented person throughout the year. And it turned into a blog, which turned into a self-help marketing thing. She has a website, which I'll put the links in the description below. Some of the ideas are really good. It's like she has on the website like different planners for how to be organized, which is something I sorely need. How to keep in touch with people you haven't kept in touch with. Everyone's happiness project is a little different. So one of the things that I'm looking forward to doing is building up a happiness project of my own based on my personal needs and desires. So be looking forward to that sometime out there. That's going to take some research first. The anecdotes were really funny. The only wrinkle that I had in this was when I went to the website and I tried downloading the app. I couldn't get the app to work on my phone. I couldn't understand why it wasn't letting me do the things that I wanted to do. So Gretchen Rubin, if you're listening out there, little help. I really liked your book and I would like to continue, learning more. So pretty please. All right, so I gave this one 4 bookmarks because everybody's happiness project is a different thing, or even if you are intending on doing such a thing or not. Next read was Lady Chatterley's Lover by D.H. Lawrence. I've chose this one for onomatopoeia, chatter. Onomatopoeia being words that sound like the thing they're doing. Like crash, bang, boom, chatter. Okay. Okay, so this is the book. It was banned as pornography until 1960, and it's still challenged in many formats. And I would see this working well as a college read, high school read. I don't know if it would hold the interest, to be honest. So the story is Lady Chatterley can't stand the husband who lives with high ideals, and it's like he's pretty much a pedantic. and is paralyzed from the waist down from a war injury. Now, and of course, he's all about, well, you ought to have a baby, darling, to continue the line. And this was before, in vitro and all that stuff. So she would have to look elsewhere if she wanted to pursue that. And, it's like she tries to help him out. She tries to be supportive of his goals and his writing dreams. He's not that good, to be honest. I don't know what kind of commentary D.H. Lawrence was trying to make there, but, there you go. So she ends up going through a couple of little minor affairs with like other artists and stuff, but, she just wasn't satisfied. No, sir. So she ends up getting her itch scratched by the hot groundskeeper, of course. And in her immature mind, she wants to divorce her wealthy pill of a husband and set up house with the groundskeeper, even though she knows very little about his own background. She's just in it for, the devil's tango, per se. But when the housekeeper's ex-wife comes into the picture and starts causing trouble in the neighborhood, and, Lady Chatterley finds out, oops, the pregnancy thing worked. Whoopsie daisy. It forces them to separate because scandal. We can't have scandal in the neighborhood. And she sent abroad until the gossip dies down, as well as her case of the stomach mumps. So my thoughts on this was that for something that was supposed to be racy, I found it pretty dull and irritating. I really didn't have sympathy for the majority of the characters, really. I mean, it's just like, you're all horrible people. Y'all deserved what you got. Now go away and stop taking up page space. That was my thoughts. So I gave it 2 bookmarks. It is what it is. Don't know what's up. So now I needed something completely different to get that taste out of my mouth. Ew. So I read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab, because I had a constellation on the cover. That was the Pop Sugar category for that one. So Adeline LaRue has been alive for over 300 years. How did she manage to stay alive that long? Well, she made a deal with the primordial deity to give up her soul when she felt she was done living, because she felt she was too restricted in her little provincial town in France, where she wanted to go out and go on adventures and live life. And the expectation was just like, no, honey, you're going to get married, live on a farm, and pop out babies until you're worn out and then you die. And she wasn't about that. So, it's like she had been praying to the Christian God. She had been praying and offering, tokens to, whatever primordial entities were in the area. According to one of her friends, when she was warned, do not make a deal with any deity after dark, because you don't know what's going to come out. Well, she was desperate. Didn't want to get married. I mean, life was so hard. And so basically this primordial deity is the embodiment of death, the devil. Think of some kind of negative dark force, and you've got this guy here. What she didn't realize that when she made this deal, she basically sacrificed her name, her self-identity. No one would remember her once they looked away from her. Yikes. That's rough. So after she made her deal, she goes back home. Her parents don't know who she is. And it's like they never had a kid. So think Clarence and It's a Wonderful Life. Okay, it's like you've never been born, but now you can go on adventures. It's like, so she ever, tried to connect with somebody. If they went to the next room and then came back in, they'd be like, who are you? Why are you in my house? So she had to spend 300 years trying to manipulate the situation so that she stayed out of trouble. She went through the revolution. She went through World War I. She went to America to get away from all of the war. And she finds someone who made a similar deal, but under different circumstances. This person wanted to be loved. He felt like he wasn't accepted for who he was. And he just felt very incomplete in that respect. Well, in that deal, his life expectancy is shortened considerably. and everybody thinks he's great. He's just the, whatever he does as a son, he's the perfect son. Strangers would come up to me, I wish I had a kid like you, or I wish my boyfriend was like you. I wish my husband was like you. It's like he was everyone's best friend, lover, confidant, family member, you name it, he was it, whether he really was or not. And while that sounds good, you don't get any genuine, thoughts and opinions from anybody when you're like that. So I really found the book fascinating. I really like the way it played with the be careful what you wish for trope of all things. And I was pretty satisfied with how it ended, not going into those details. I was able to predict the ending a little before. I think they were probably hoping to let me in on the secret, but blame me for reading so much. Oh well. So 4 out of 5 bookmarks. I highly recommend going out and reading this one. It's a very, very awesome book. So the next book I read was The 7 Deadly Sins Omnibus 1, which is volumes 1 through 3 of the manga by Nakaba Suzuki. I've categorized this under found family because really that's what it is. It is a found family of misfits. So here's the story. Princess Elizabeth is the daughter of the King of Leonis back in ancient times when the human and non-human entities would, coexist together. Her father's been taken by a coup d'etat from a group called the Holy Knights, who are anything but holy. She escapes, and her only hope is to find not Obi-Wan Kenobi, but the 7 Deadly Sins. It's a group of legendary warriors that are in exile. She meets with Meliodas, the dragon sin of wrath, who on the surface looks like a kid, and he doesn't even carry a real sword, but that assumption is a sin in itself, because you get that boy mad, the muscles come out and he will waste you. Okay, it's like he has superhuman strength and he's over 3,000 years old. So check that. There are other characters in the first 3 volumes. You have Deanne, the giantess, who can control nature, and her sin is this envy. She really has a hankering for Meliodas, even though there is an extreme size differential. And Meliodas isn't that into her anyway, because he's all about his waifu, Princess Elizabeth. It's really kind of cute and strange relationship, but not in the first 3 volumes, so I'm not going to go there. Other characters. You have Ban, the foxen of greed, who is also labeled as the immortal, Ban the immortal. And then you have King or / Harlequin, the sin of sloth, who has this thing called the chastifoil, and it looks like, under normal circumstances, a big fluffy pillow that can be transformed into various weapons of destruction, because he's king of the fairies. So there you go. It is basically what spawned the Netflix anime series, The 7 Deadly Sins. It's one of my all-time favorites. It ranks right up there with the Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood and Death Note and Sailor Moon, the original. Thank you much, because that's what I was grown on. So if you are into that, by all means, go and read this. It does make for a fun read. Oh, or bookmarks. So Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert A. Heinlein. It's a Hugo Award winner. So it fell under that category. It is a classic in the sci-fi genre. It's about this guy named Valentine Michael Smith, first human to be brought up by Martians. When he's returned back to Earth, he's a celebrity in a variety of different ways, because he was a human that was brought up by Martians. Technically, under certain laws, he would own Mars, as much as you can own anything in a colonization sense, per se. And also, he came back with some very unique abilities from his time with the Martians. He struggles with learning about social mores and prejudices, and just basically how to function in America, basically in the 60s, like in a space age version of the 60s. And he teaches his new groups of friends, a lawyer, a nurse, a reporter, and others, about grokking, which is like supreme understanding of a situation. If you grok fully of whatever it is you're talking about, you've become one with it because you understand it so completely. Water sharing, because water is a scarce resource up on Mars. It's like if you share water with somebody, kind of like in Frank Herbert's Dune, you are considered a water brother. Even if you're a girl, you're still a water brother. Gender is pretty much null and void among the Martians because they, according to Heinlein, there and can be both male and female for reproductive purposes. That's not to dig too deep into that one, guys. Okay, I'm just saying. The other thing, he's teaching them about levitation and water sharing and grokking, and one thing leads to another, and he's the founder of a sex cult religion because Heinlein. My review is nothing compared to the overly sarcastic productions commentary and review of this book. I will put a link in the description below because it is hilarious and it is done by people who have studied classic literature and history, and it's just really good. I highly recommend that review. The book itself was very interesting. There's some things that definitely would not fly today, but I really like the commentary on commercialism and religion and hypocrisy. 4 bookmarks for Stranger in a Strange Land. It is a work unto itself. I read 10,000 Dresses by Marcus Ewert. It comes under the classification of a gender identity book. Also has been challenged, and I'll explain more about that in a minute. So the story is this kid Bailey dreams of fantasy dresses every night. Dresses made of crystals and flowers and windows that look out into other landscapes. But when Bailey wakes up and asks for help in creating these dream dresses into reality, the family in various ways reminds Bailey that he is a boy and boys don't think about dresses. Sad. Feeling dejected, Bailey's walking along and he meets this older girl named Laurel who's trying to make a dress. And she's really touched by Bailey's imagination and accepts him, kid, for the remarkable person that she is. Now, the illustrations are beautiful in this book, but I felt it kind of ended abruptly. And I understand concerns about this book playing with gender pronouns being as a confusing thing for very young children. You'd have to have a lot of conversation, but it was definitely a good book. I think it teaches a lot about acceptance and, what defines you as male or female or whatever. I gave this one 3 bookmarks, generally because of the possible confusion for small people. So you just want to pick your audience carefully on that one. And then I read The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton, the classic. This one would also fall under the category of a found family situation. I just got to the 7 Deadly Sins book first. The Outsiders was not available at the time when I was ready to read it. But if you've studied it in school, you'll know what an awesome book this is. It's also been on my banned and challenge book list. Story is this kid named Ponyboy Curtis. He's 14 years old. And as far as he's concerned, there are only 2 types of people in the world: greasers and socks. Socks being short for socialites. So he and his friends are greasers, outcasts of societies, juvenile delinquents, and they're proud of it, doggone it. And the socks are the gang that live on the right side of the tracks and basically make it a point to make the greaser's life as miserable as possible. So when Ponyboy's friend Johnny Cake saves him by killing a sock, it begins the domino effect of tragic circumstances that wrecks Ponyboy's world and his view on people in general. I have to say, as Awesome as the story is, what makes it even better is that the author was 17 years old when she wrote this book. And to have that much insight on the human condition and the world around her, that in itself is worth 5 bookmarks right there. I don't know of too many 17-year-olds who can write as clearly and as deeply as she did on this, her first book. Mind blown. Literary genius. So I read another legend after that, and this one was actually a reread for me. This is 1Q84 by Haruki Murakami. I love Murakami. He writes such interesting things. And I chose this one for their 2 point of view. So you're in Tokyo in 1984, and an assassin sports club instructor named Ayamame notices strange changes in her environment that leads her to believe that she's in a parallel timeline that she calls 1Q, Q for question mark, 84, because that's what you do when you notice strange things. You must be in a different timeline. Meanwhile, her former elementary school classmate / crush, Tango, is a cram school instructor and a ghostwriter, and he's been given a pretty sketchy assignment by an unusual author that changes his milquetoast world. With the 2 opposing point of views, the 2 get tied up in a mysterious cult, an ugly investigator, a wealthy dowager who protects battered women, the spirit of a very angry television fee collector, and little people. Definitely little people. Not talking about so my opinion is that it's not one of Murakami's best works, but it's the first one I read, and I read it ages ago. I reread it with my husband because he was interested in the book, and it was so long ago. It was like I read it for the first time. I give this one 4 bookmarks because there's just a lot going on, a lot to keep track of. And Murakami does have some points where he gets a little repetitive in some of his themes in this one, but maybe that's because it is so long, and it technically was like a 3-part serial. So that might explain some of it, but it's like, okay, we get it. The dude has mommy issues. Gosh. My final book that I read for the month of May was The Killers of the Flower Moon, The Osage Murders and Birth of the FBI. It was written by David Grann, and it fell under the category of a topic I knew nothing about. Which is true. I know nothing about the FBI. I knew nothing about the Osage murders. So, and I dive. So it's in the 1920s, and a series of murders among the Osage Indian Nation break out in Oklahoma. And it sparked the young J. Edgar Hoover, the director of a fledgling crime unit called the FBI, and he sends an agent named Tom White to discover the culprits. Now, why were these Native Americans being murdered, especially the family of Molly Burkhart? Greed, sheer greed. When they were sent to the reservation in the Oklahoma Territory before it became a state, they landed on a very rich oil deposit. And so, those oil magnates and stuff are going to do what they're going to do. There's a lot of mob ties and, fraud and graft, and not to mention the murders, which they used a combination of guns and poison. And a lot of them were Molly Burkhart's family. She watched as her mother and her sister died. She watched as her friends were being taken ill and died. She was a diabetic in a time where insulin was just becoming a thing. And she was convinced that they were coming after her next. And she wasn't wrong. Whew, intense, but really fascinating stuff. It wasn't a book that I had intended, but it just kind of fell onto me, and I had heard so many good things about it that I was like, yeah, let's give it a go. And I'm so glad I did. I feel I've learned a lot. So 5 bookmarks for that one. And there you have it. My April-May reads. I'm hoping that my reads for the month of June aren't as lengthy, so I can continue to parse these out in smaller chunks. But I appreciate you hanging with me throughout the entire video. Again, see the descriptions below for links to, so for the Gretchen Rubin site and the overly sarcastic review of Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land, you won't be sorry. If you like these types of videos, please click like, subscribe, and ding-a-ling the notification bell, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. And if you're seeing a shadow, my cat thinks my ring light is like a little sun and thinks that he can just bask as he rubs on my screen. Hi, Gigi. Okay, we're gonna move on. And my cat's trying to distract me. Gigi, knock it off. Be good. Brought up by Martians. Hi, Gigi. You wanna make a crash landing there? Hey, Goofus. I vacuumed today, so he's paying me back. So anyway, I'll start that one again.